your annual taxes may then be, as I said, instead of $10 a year, it's going to be possibly $12 a year, but then you will also lose that extra check. So if you're getting a check for $500, $600, $900, you'd be losing that too. So, and that is a concern, because what's happening is, with the governor having to, requiring that the villages stay within the 2% cap, we have to go into appropriated balances or surplus. So what ends up happening is folks end up having to pay a couple different times. They're not only paying for a lawsuit that's not covered by insurance, they're gonna have to pay for higher taxes. So it can be an issue. However, we will be defending the lawsuit, and if and when things progress, we'll have an opportunity to report back, I will do the same. And in addition, again, we'll be talking about the budget, so we'll be moving along as far as that's concerned. And I will say, again, congratulations to Deputy Mayor Valentine and Trustee Van Olstein for their re-election last week, and we look forward to a good 4 years of you continuing the great work and representing the residents of Chestnut Ridge. So again, we thank you for your efforts, and we look forward to the next term. All right, that having been said, I will open the floor to the agenda. However, if you have any questions with regard to the budget, we're going to have a separate hearing for that. So I would just ask that if it's a budget question, to just hold that off. But if there's any questions with regard to the agenda items, now would be a time to ask. Okay, I don't see any hands up or people up, so I would ask to close the
meeting on the agenda, second, except for the budget.
Thank you, Trustee Miller, and thank you, Deputy Valentine, for the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, there being none? Again, I thank you very much. Okay, at this juncture, we will open up the public hearing for the budget. We do have with us, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over the minutes, I apologize, thank you, Ms. Mandel. Since we just got them, I think we're gonna have to hold off until until the April meeting on that. So, we're gonna adjourn that to the April meeting. Oh, that's fine, you're welcome to. So, we'll just, all right, so we're gonna carry over the February minutes to the April meeting. Okay, all right. Next, again, now we go on to the tentative budget for fiscal year June 1st, 2019 through May 31st, 2020. As I made briefly during my remarks, during my mayor's report, we stayed at cap, which is the 2%. And that was after budgeting for the additional staff, as we've been saying we were going to do, namely increasing the part-time code enforcement to full-time, and adding an additional full-time deputy building inspector. In addition to, there was a request from the courts because of the increased activity in the courts with regard to both violations and zoning matters, to increase the one part-time court clerk to a full-time court clerk. In addition, because of the increased activity in the building department, a part-time secretary was made a full-time secretary. So with those added staff folks, that obviously was a large addition to our budget. However, because of the prudent guidance from our financial consultant and our treasurer, we were able to minimize the impact, because we were able to utilize our surplus because of our prudent spending. However, there's gonna come a time where if we have to continue staying at the 2% and our expenses end up going up more than 2% as they did this year, and we're not the only village that's having this issue, it's with other villages also. We're gonna have to start eating away more and more at our surplus, or we're gonna have to start raising taxes. And again, by raising taxes, it's not so much the minimal percentage that you as a taxpayer will have to pay on your village taxes, but then it's losing that extra star credit check that you're getting. So, that having been said, I'll introduce Mr. Nyman. If there's anything that I didn't cover as far as the synopsis is concerned, Mr. Nyman, you're welcome to add to it, and then after that, we'll open it up to the public if there's any specific questions with regard to the budget itself.
Okay.
Take the mic.
So,
I think your explanation was a little too simple.
okay, then please expound.
Okay. First of all, the mayor has alluded to the New York State tax cap. Several years ago, I guess about 5 or 6 years ago, Governor Cuomo instituted a program where taxes could not go up by the lesser of 2% or the inflation factor within the area. Over the last several years, the inflation factor has been quite minimal. At a point in time, we were only allowed to increase taxes by 0.25%, I believe, 1 year. Now what's happened, however, is that we have an increase in cost of living in this area, in the state, that has exceeded 2%, but we are capped at increasing taxes at 2%. So as cost of living, commonly called COLA, continues to increase, as it will, and historically it's been well in excess of 2%, we will only be allowed to increase taxes by 2% and still allow you to get these star refunds. So it's creating pressure for many municipalities and municipal districts, because our cost of living is going up. Our expenses are going up, our wage increases are going up beyond 2% in general. So, and it will be more and more difficult in future years, without anything else being said, if what people charge us goes up by more than 2%, we can only increase taxes by 2%. So, as the mayor said, in the tentative budget, the tax increase to protect the residents' star rebate is only going up by 2%. That being said, the reason that the village was able this year to maintain the tax increase at 2% is because it took a huge bite out of the village's surplus. The surplus, fortunately, was built up over a few years due to cautious spending. This year, however, in this budget, we have a withdrawal of that surplus of in excess of $400,000. That can't go on in the future, so that should expenses continue at the level that they are set for the next fiscal year, keeping the tax rate at 2% is going to be very difficult. And it's my role to warn the village board of that, and I did. Why are the expenses up so high? Without going into a line-by-line examination of the budget, basically the area that's gone up dramatically is staff. And within staff, it's mostly within the inspection area or people in other departments that support the inspection area. So the mayor had mentioned that because of the additional volume in the court, both for vehicle and traffic, and also for code and the additional hours in the court and the additional processing, that in the past we've had 2 part-time justice clerks, each covering basically part of the day. One of those justice clerks is going to become full-time, and that's adding $23,000, just as an example to the payroll. Then, in the area of inspection, safety inspection, there are quite a few additions, necessary additions to the department, and also increasing the hours by people who have not been full-time employees. But unfortunately, the bottom line in safety inspection, code enforcement, building clerk, and the additional overhead of purchasing another vehicle, that area next year is projected to increase by $136,000. And on top of that, the payroll overhead for health insurance and retirement, both because of their increasing costs, but also because of the increasing number of employees, is going to go up by $100,000. So that's really what's affecting our budget this year. There's a few other items. There's the land use surge, the land
The comprehensive plan.
It's $33,000 for that.
For
That's
the first half.
necessary. That has to be done. So what's happened here is that the amount of surplus being used is for almost $479,000 to balance this budget, as compared to the current year that we're in, $153,000. So that's the math, and it can't continue to occur in the future, or we will just run out of surplus, and that you don't want to do for a couple of reasons. Number one, you need to have a safety net. You need to have a cushion because of possible lawsuits, because of things that might happen at Village Hall and you have to fix stuff, and other expenses of the village. But also, just as importantly, when you go out to borrow money, whether it's for equipment to fix Village Hall or to maintain and fix the roads, you need to have surplus for your bond rating. So it's very, very important that we don't continue to dig this deeply into the surplus. Yes, next year we are projecting additional fees, additional fines, and there are some pluses on the other side. Some of the other things have gone up, like the utility surcharges and things of that nature. But the cost really that we see and the burden is using up the surplus while still maintaining the 2% tax rate increase.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nyman. I apologize, folks, that my explanation was a tad more simplistic than Mr. Nyman's, but that's why we bring Marvin here, to fill in the gaps, and I appreciate that. And
Sorry for yelling.
At this point then, again, since Mr. Nyman is here, if there are any questions with regard to the budget that you have for him, now would be the time to ask. Excuse me? Or name and address for the record, please.
Margaret Dupuy, 49 Spring Hill Terrace. When you have street maintenance for the town of Ramapo, that includes salting the streets and sweeping the streets and everything, right?
That's correct. That's,
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to talk to you? All right. And also, what I've noticed this winter, when we had snowstorms coming, at least certain streets in Chestnut Ridge, like the Salvo Court was salted or treated, but the other secondary streets were not. They were only treated once. so they were not treated. Also, I think also for sweeping the streets during the summer, to clean the streets, I have not seen the truck at all.
Once a
cleaning the
year.
streets. It's once a year?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, and all this money for once a year?
Next question.
I can't have an answer, okay, all right, fine.
That's, the
Street-
contract is for once a year for street sweeping, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Now, also you had something for, street lighting, right?
Street-
Now, I know right in front of my house, on the side of my house, there's a lamp that keeps going off. Somebody had reported it, the light came, the bulb was placed on the back, and it's off again. So,
Wait,
yeah, I know because I know I had the same issue with the smart board at school. It was probably a bad batch of bulbs, because it did not take a long time for this bulb to go out. So the bulb, I don't care if the bulb is out, because I like that kind of look. But some people prefer to have a bit more light, so the bulb is out again. And
All you need to do when you see a bulb out, you need to get the number on the telephone, on the utility pole, you call it into the village clerk, and then we call Orange and Rock and they replace it.
that's my next thing. Some of these, labels are falling off the poles, so you won't be able to call in the number for the poles.
I guess the closest address then on where the pole is located then would be the next
Just
best
because
thing.
you can be it where it is.
Okay.
But we can try to locate it
I
out.
don't
And
care if
Orange
the
and
bulb is
Rockland
out.
is very receptive when we call them.
Yeah, but I think maybe it's a bad batch of bulbs that's been doing it,
It could
so
be.
I just wanna let you know that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question. And by the way, just along the line too, as you're getting down to your seat, the contract that we've had for Ramapo with regard to their, street maintenance and highway, has been pretty static. Considering we're probably one of the villages that, we have a lot of road in our village, as opposed to the other villages that, contract with Town of Ramapo. And Town of Ramapo has been very, very, very accommodating for us with regard to keeping the fee actually went down this year, as opposed to last year. So, but at the same time, there are instances where perhaps, the road work and maintenance isn't as up to snuff as it should be. And again, unless we know, we can't say something about it. So we appreciate that, and then we'll make sure that, we get the proper person on the other end of the phone to say, you need to be more aware. So,
Okay, one
I
more
think the
thing.
question, may I help for a second?
Uh-huh.
What is entailed in that contract for $18,000? In other words, it's not
What
just
18,000?
packing.
518.
It's
Right, right.
518.
I'm
It's
sorry.
518,000.
518,000, sorry. Right, but big number. It's not just to vacuum the street.
No, that's for plowing, that's for road work, that's for storm
I think
drain
that's what you're
repair,
getting at.
that's for pothole repair, that's for,
All
any
street
street maintenance, anytime we have a problem with a sign, they fix the signs. Basically, they are our DPW. They are our Department of Public Works. I have no problem with another question, but you just need to come to the microphone.
Could I add something?
Go right ahead,
Don't mind.
go right ahead.
Okay. There are, I consulted several villages within Ramapo and had been a treasurer of one of them for many, many years. The village of Chestnut Ridge, compared to the other villages that contract with the town, probably pay the lowest cost per mile of roadway in the town as far as the service. It's also my understanding that the way the street sweeping works is, it's no different in Chestnut Ridge than in unincorporated Ramapo or any other village. If they do it once a year, any place in the town, that's what we get. If they do it 5 times a year, that's
No,
what we
because
get.
I think I had seen it only once, and I hadn't seen it again, that's why I brought up the question.
That's possible, and I
They only
believe,
own one sweeper.
and I believe for a long
Well,
time they didn't sweep.
I've never seen it at all.
I only
One at a
have one
time, one
room,
at a
and I
time.
still sweep more than once.
No.
We're out of time.
Yeah.
I believe for a long time they didn't even have an operating street sweeper.
Off the top of my head, I know the contract says one, I'm pretty sure it says once a year. It may say 2, but I'm pretty sure it says once, and it's usually around the fall or
I'm
right
sorry
before
to
the fall.
interrupt, but-
Okay,
All
my
right, your
next
next question?
question is then, I know that a lot of work was done by, I guess, O&R, because they were, the pipes, the gas pipes were very old, and there was a lot of gas smell coming up from the street. And they did repair as much as they could, but the streets really look horrible. And there's also a particular area as you go from Spring Hill to Bryan, there's always an issue there with the road sinking in.
Yes.
Okay, who's responsible for that? Is it the town of Ramapo or,
Actually, when Orange and Rockland does any work like that, they're actually responsible.
so will they do the whole street or just that part?
No, what happens is this. Once the work is completed by Orange and Rockland,
Mm-hmm.
and there is gonna be some settlement sometimes, what Orange and Rockland will do is, they will pay the village, because if that street is on the paving schedule, Orange and Rockland will actually contribute to the village as part of the paving schedule. So if that roadway is part of paving, then that's gonna be paved, and Orange and Rockland would have defrayed some of the cost. But let's say that road was just recently paved, and it needs to be repaired. Well, then, then they may have to either come in to repair it, or they will pay us and we'll repair it. But that's something, it depends on, and also on the timing, because there are certain times where they can come and do a quick repair, but then, and they have to wait for the weather to break before they can do anything further, like with potholes. They try to fill the potholes, but if it's still cold, if it's still wet, it never works out. But the long answer to your short question is, if Orange and Rockland made the hole, they're responsible for it, but what they will do is they'll reimburse the village and we'll fix it.
Okay, because they dug that big long line to repair the pipes and they did put something there. But it looks like a big vein in the middle, okay? So I was wondering, when will our streets be scheduled to be repaved?
Well, usually what we do is we do the paving when the asphalt plants are up and running, and that's usually the spring. So maybe May, April, May, and there too, what happens is we are able to piggyback with Ramapo and the other villages that are doing similar paving work, in that we will get a reduced rate on the asphalt, so that when the roads are paved, we save a little bit money that way. So again, you're probably not gonna see any heavy, regular, conventional paving, at least until the middle to late spring.
Oh,
because the
this year, I
asphalt-
thought it was 4 years from now.
No.
Okay.
And then it also depends on, again, now the streets, we have a paving schedule, in that there are maybe a dozen streets, 8 to 10 streets.
Yeah, and it's revised.
Is it on the
They
website?
are right now in
Yeah.
the process
It's
of
on the
going
website?
through the entire.
I don't know if that would be on the website, but that's something that maybe if you call tomorrow, we can let you know which streets are on, like,
Okay.
there's some streets that are scheduled to.
It's currently being revised.
Yeah.
Every year after the winter, they go around again and they take a look at all the streets, the engineer,
Yeah.
in conjunction with the highway personnel.
All right.
And they go around and they say, okay, wow, this road took a real beating, so maybe we'll move that up on the list of paving. That's how it works.
For instance, right now, in front of me, I've got what's proposed, at least this was dated January 2019, so it probably was going to be, it's gonna have to be revised, but the way that we were looking at 2019 to 2020, some of the roads identified: Bellows Lane, Brook Hollow Court, Sherrill Street, Gottlieb Drive, Haller Crescent, Kennedy Parkway, Matson Court, North Sherrill Street, Orchard Court, Paul Court, Swallow Avenue, Valley Court, Whitefield Road. So that was as of January.
Mhm.
Okay, now, as Deputy Clerk Cheney just said, what will happen is the village engineer will do another assessment, and then possibly have to rearrange a little bit what the priorities are. In addition, we have to know what kind of funding we have available, because we do get what they call CHIP funding from Albany. The CHIP funding is for roads, roadways and things of that nature, and in that regard, it's based on the lineal feet of roadways that a village has, and that's how our allotment is handled. So we have to see what our allotment is, and then we kind of juggle priority-wise what street gets what. But you should see paving, hopefully maybe May, June, but then again, it depends on the schedule,
All right.
and it depends on the streets.
Okay, thank
I'll
you.
add
You're
one
welcome.
thing. I
No
appreciate-
problem.
I personally appreciate what you were saying, because as a result of Orange and Rockland's work on those gas mains, I suffered a terrible bike accident, breaking a lot of different bones, suffering, I've been for the last 4 months in a lot of difficulty, because of my bike that wound up with a flat tire
Mhm.
as I came down very slowly and tried to make a turn off Midland,
Midland.
not seeing the gravel that they left on the road.
Mm.
And I slid and it was not happy.
Well, I
So-
still spoke to the people who were,
I understand what you're
checking.
saying. I'm not
No,
happy
I'm
with
glad,
it.
I'm glad at least you took care of that.
I never sued.
But I have spoken to the people who were checking to see if they had done a good job on the gas. And there is still, as I walk the dog, as I'm coming from Bryan onto Spring Hill, that same area that has a whole road problem.
Yeah, I know.
I pick it up, and is that something that's constant? And I pick up the gas smell. And I did tell them, they said they would take care of it. I don't know.
They didn't have someone.
They will do that, and then, again, when you see that, or if you smell something, then you call Village Hall, and they're pretty quick that way. They're very quick.
And,
All right,
Thank you.
Thank
Some
you.
of the repairs, it still bothers me when
Next, please.
everyone repaired, when Route 45 was repaired beautifully, right? And all of a sudden, someone had to dig a ditch across Route 45, and now I got a bump.
Name and address for the
Why
record,
can't they make
please.
it straight, flat?
Anthony Shaw, 23 Milwaukee Drive.
What's your name again?
Anthony Shaw, 23 Milwaukee Drive. On some of our bigger contracts, like the health insurance and our sanitation, our garbage pickup, do we shop those actively at all, or are we just, I know there's a switch over in garbage within the last couple of years that we switched to different companies for a year and then switched back, but do we shop any of that at
Yes, they
all?
go out for bid.
Every
It's a
year?
5-year bid,
Okay.
and you're not